Seeing the wreckage, it's clear why there were no survivors. Debris litters a swathe of the forest where the plane came down. Initial reports blame the pilot. This was a Polish Air Force plane carrying a delegation of officials, including President Kaczynski and his wife Maria. The ceremony that was due to take place is now the focus of fresh grief and disbelief. Amanda Walker, Sky News, Moscow.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Der polnische Präsident Lech Kaczynski ist tot. Kaczynski kam heute Morgen bei einem Flugzeugabsturz in der Nähe von Smolensk im Westen Russland ums Leben. Mit ihm waren zahlreiche polnische Führungskräfte aus Politik, Armee und Finanzwelt an Bord. Keiner der mehr als 90 Menschen in der Maschine überlebte den Absturz. Kaczynski kam aus Warschau, von Smolensk wollte er nach Katyn fahren, um dort der polnischen Opfer des Massenmordes zu gedenken, das der sowjetische Geheimdienst 1940 begangen hat.
Dass hier niemand überlebt hat, war den herbeigeeilten Rettungskräften schnell klar. Heute Morgen im Wald bei Smolensk, nur 300 Meter von der Landebahn entfernt, war die Maschine mit dem polnischen Präsidenten an Bord abgestürzt. Die Piloten hatten 4-mal zum Landeanflug angesetzt, trotz starken Nebels und entgegen dringender Warnungen aus dem Tower.
Polen trauert. Als die Meldung aus Russland kam, unterbrachen die Radio- und Fernsehprogramme ihre Sendungen. Seitdem ist das Land im Ausnahmezustand. Tausende legten Blumen zum Gedenken an die Opfer nieder, wie hier am Präsidentenpalast in der Warschauer Altstadt, der weiträumig abgesperrt ist. Kerzen brennen, Messen werden abgehalten, die Flagge Polens steht überall auf Halbmast. Ministerpräsident Tusk brach in Tränen aus, als er von dem Unglück hörte.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Tupolev of Tu-154 was on a flight to the western Russian city of Smolensk, and Polish foreign ministry officials say it hit some trees on approach to the airport and caught fire. A Russian official says there was fog at the time of the crash. And as we heard from our Richard Quest, we need to make the point that this particular aircraft has a remarkably good safety record. Now, as we've been reporting, Polish President Lech Kaczynski was on his way to that memorial service we just mentioned in Katyn, Russia, when he was killed in today's plane crash. The service is to mark the 70th anniversary of the Katyn massacre during World War II, and no survivors. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is convening an emergency cabinet meeting, and former President Lech Walesa calls the crash an inconceivable tragedy. President Kaczynski was leading the delegation that was to mark the 70th anniversary of the massacre of thousands of Polish officers by Soviet forces during World War II.
Hello, a very good evening to you. Thousands of people have gathered outside the presidential palace in the Polish capital, Warsaw, after President Lech Kaczynski and dozens of top officials were killed in a plane crash in western Russia. They were travelling for a commemoration of a Second World War massacre of thousands of Poles.
The Polish Prime Minister has described the crash as the most tragic event in the country's recent history. Not one of the 97 passengers survived when the plane came down in thick fog in the Smolensk region of Russia. Mike Waldridge reports.
The plane came down in fog in these woods on the approach to the airport in Smolensk after apparently making several attempts to land. The Russian authorities say it hit the treetops before breaking up, and they claim that the pilot disregarded advice to land elsewhere because of the conditions. In Warsaw, the presidential palace immediately became the focal point of a nation in mourning. Throughout the day, people have gathered there to lay flowers and pay tribute to the victims of the tragedy.
I came here to light a candle because the best president we've ever had has died. It's true.
It's a great shock because the elite of our nation went there to remember the dead from 70 years ago. And right now Poland is really in trouble. We're all in shock.
The president was on his way to lead the Polish representation at this event in the Katyn forest, marking the 70th anniversary of the massacre of thousands of Poles by the Russians during World War II. The chairs left empty only emphasise the poignancy of the timing of the disaster. Besides President Lech Kaczynski and his wife Maria Kaczynska, those on board the plane included the Army Chief of Staff, General Franciszek Gagor, and the head of the Polish National Bank, Sławomir Szkipek. The crash has torn a hole in the heart of the Polish political establishment and public life, and it virtually removed a generation of senior military commanders too. Members of the large Polish community in Britain have been expressing their condolences, as have leaders around the world. The Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin said it was a tragedy the like of which Russia had never experienced. Mr. Putin has assumed charge of a commission that will investigate the crash. Mike Wooldridge, BBC News.